It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday. A somber Monday, if you will. Your boy been emotionally grieving, physically grieving since the sad news of Chadwick Boseman, aka Black Panther, Wakanda forever and ever. Por todo vida. Such a bummer, okay? We're starting this one off with a little low energy. And I know it's a thing where you're just like, man, celebrity deaths, you know, sometimes you're like, it's silly when you see people getting upset, like, yeah, another person's left the earth, maybe they were a decent person. But when you go back and look at Mr. Boseman's life, you just see someone who did so much good stuff. Like, he was just one of the good ones, man. In a time of so much darkness in life, to see the stuff that he did and battling colon cancer for 4 years in private, filmed movies the whole time, keeping it a secret. And you see, like, he was going to visit kids dealing with cancer and terminal kids and all this stuff. He was going to the hospital and visiting them and keeping it a secret that he himself was battling colon cancer. Pretty insane. You know, like kind of everyone does when you first hear it. You know, my buddy sent me the message about it. My initial reaction is, shut the fuck up. Couldn't believe it. And then you go down the rabbit hole of kind of looking at who he was. And sometimes when this happens, you're like, yeah, you know, he seemed cool. You know, that's a bummer. But then you start seeing all the difference and what he stood for and how much he was just trying to make a difference in the world. Like, just a pure person. So it's always a bummer when you see something like that happen. And you always get inspired by it, to see someone who was so selfless and was trying to make a difference in the world and do the right things. So rest in peace, Mr. Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. One of the best roles in Marvel, period. You know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I love me a Marvel movie. And Black Panther may have been my favorite Marvel movie. It was phenomenal when they introduced him in Civil War. And I think a lot of it has to do with his ability to act. Not to get off topic, but I think that's what's made all the Marvel movies have such a high impact, is that it wasn't like the cheesy X-Men movies. Sorry, Logan. What's his fucking name? That actor, Hugh Jackman. He's like a traditional actor doing fucking theater and shit. Mr. fucking Broadway. But like a lot of those movies, like the original comic book movies, they were like just staying in the vein of, this is a comic book movie and blah, blah, blah. A lot of action, and like they were leaning on you being in love with the character and being able to slide. But in Marvel movies, they took legit actors and put them in those roles and changed it from being just a superhero movie. They always get like a bad rap. What was his name? Really famous director. I love his stuff. He directs Goodfellas. How am I blanking on this? Anyway, this director said that superhero movies are killing theater. They're killing cinema. And it's just not true. I feel like they... shit, it's going to drive me nuts if I don't figure out who it was. You guys know who he is. Director of Goodfellas. You guys know him. I can't believe I blanked on that. Martin Scorsese. Such an idiot, Evan. Such an idiot. He said superhero movies were killing cinema. And I say, Mr. Scorsese, with all due respect, keep up, baby. Keep up with the times. Not everybody wants to see a fucking 4-hour scene of Robert De Niro sitting in a fucking restaurant talking about the block. Like after a little while, I watched like half of the most recent one that Scorsese did. I think it was on Netflix. What was it? It was, it had Joe Pesci in it and The Irishman. I think it was The Irishman. Listen, I tried to watch half of it. I should probably go back and watch it. I'm sure cinematically it's great, but it's like, I always get annoyed with people who don't adapt to the times. And they don't adapt in the sense of evolving with the films. And yeah, he evolved in the sense of storytelling and everything like that, but it kind of evolved its way out and stuck too hard to a certain thing, a principle about film. And I think sometimes you have to know your audience and know, some people probably hate me for saying this, but it's the truth. You have to know your audience and know what the timeline and what the playing field is like at that time. You got to know the terrain, baby, okay? You got to be like a chameleon, able to adapt. And that doesn't mean you water down your own product. That just means you know what you're dealing with and adjust according. And this is what I was trying to get at with these superhero movies, is I feel like because they got such legit actors to play these roles, it brought like a legitimacy to superhero movies, Marvel in particular, where it was no longer just superhero doing superhero shit. It was like they were believable characters, and they made them human and added a lot of drama into it. And basically, like, superhero movies are dramas pretty much with some super sick action. And that's what I noticed about Black Panther, was it was like his depth of acting was insane in those movies from the minute he was on film. And as I go down the rabbit hole of looking at his life and how he prepared and all the different stuff and how serious, like hearing other actors talk about him and how they would say he would give so much of himself in scenes that weren't even about him. He would give you a lot, because like, if you don't know, like acting, you shoot all your scenes, like where the camera's focused on you, and then you're doing shots for the other actor where basically they're getting the reply. Like that's the thing, is like you shoot one scene over and over and over again. You might shoot it 10 different angles, and some of those angles, all that's being filmed of you is the back of your head. So your person that you're filming with has to work with that. They have to work with you looking at them and see what you give them. And a lot of actors, they phone it in. Some of them even have stand-ins where they're like, yeah, you use my stand-in for the back of my head shot because I don't want to be here. I want to be in my dresser. But apparently the dresser, they're just going to climb inside their dresser like the fucking Indian in the cupboard. Their trailer. And maybe they're in a dresser in that trailer. But he would stay in the scenes and act and give them that emotion back. And that's why I think those shots were so good, those scenes with him, and were so involved. I sound like a real Tinseltown prick right now. But it's true. Like you could see the drama coming through in his level of acting. And when you hear about his humanitarian work and just the kind of person he was, you just get inspired by it to be a better person and to really try to impact change. And that's like all you can do is look at certain people's lives and you get inspired by them. And, you know, it's always a bummer when someone passes away early, and you just focus on how full of a life that he lived and the things that he accomplished and the impact that he made in his short life is 100 times more than some people who live a full life ever accomplish, you know. So I'm going to be inspired by it. Wakanda forever, you know. This is one of those things where I heard that Denzel Washington paid for his acting classes and kind of sponsored them and everything, kind of supported them. And it's those things that don't get shown, that don't get reported. And that's one reason I've always loved Denzel Washington, is because he's never been baited into the virtue signaling, and he's never been baited into like that Hollywood lifestyle. He's always kept a good head on his shoulders, from what I've seen. And just the way that I've seen him talk to the press and in public is, you know, they've tried to bait him with these conversations about black and white issues, just overall racial issues and politics, and he never falls for it. You know, he always talks. He has a great quote about the media, and he says, "The news. If you listen to the news, you're misinformed. If you don't listen to the news, you're uninformed." And he says, the news doesn't even worry about being true anymore. They just worry about being first. And that's so true. And they're not held accountable. And he's one of those people. And this is the thing about Chadwick. I'm sorry, but like when I call him Chadwick, it feels like it's a friend named Chad. It feels like it is my boyfriend Chad. And I'm just calling him Chadwick. Like, you know, this is my little Chadwick. But that's just his name, you know? But he's my Chadwick. He's one of those people that I model how I want my life to be. In one particular sense, I want to be the king of Wakanda. I'm going for that. But the way people never preach, this is the same impact that my college swim coach had. This is the same impact that my own dad has had on me. And it's something that I realized as I get older, the kind of example my dad was, is that my dad never talked really about what he's done and what he's accomplished. He's never really been like, oh, look at what I've done and look what this, you know, and this and this. Same thing with, you know, my college coach and people, young men like Chadwick Boseman, my Chadwick. They just lead by example. They don't need to get involved so much and ego feed this good work that they're doing. They let it speak for itself. They let their accomplishments speak for themselves, and their actions. There's nothing I hate more than when people are telling you what to do, and they don't have that accomplishment. It's one thing that if you've done these amazing accomplishments, you at least have the platform to be able to give people criticism and to be able to give people advice and help. But when people, the best advice they can do is lead by example and show their work, their resume, their body of work of what they've actually done in the world. It's a beautiful thing. And that's so inspiring. I love seeing that kind of stuff where it's like people who make an impact in other people's lives. And that's something that you see what Chadwick has done. You know, I know he was the perfect role, perfect person for that role, just based on the depth of his character. He truly was Black Panther, you know. He really was an inspiration, had his own moral compass, and embodied that role completely. And, you know, he really was a great example for the African American community, probably Africa in general, you know, because that's where the character was based out of. Wakanda, shout out. But I know that the impact he had on the entire culture, and it's a bummer, man. It's a bummer. And I hope that we all just take inspiration from it at the end of the day, you know. So Mr. Black Panther, rest in peace. Whatever in the movies, death is not the end, you know. He's a real panther with that purple sky out there right now, out in the Serengeti. Bars. Y'all got 2 songs today. Spoiled, rotten. #spoiled. How you guys doing? Everybody doing good? I hope you're doing good. It's a weird time right now. It's literally, I'm sorry because I feel partly responsible, but ever since I started this podcast, we maybe had like a couple weeks where shit was fun. Let me look at the current events. What do we got going on? I'm going to be performing here. Nope. Apocalypse. Start my podcast, Apocalypse. 7 minutes in the apocalypse. Welcome to the apocalypse. It's so weird, everything we're going through. Every now and then, I'll just be living life. And we've been in this pandemic so long now that I'll just stop and I'll be like, this is fucking weird. You'll be out getting stuff and everybody has face masks and you're just like, the fuck is going on with life right now, you know? And it blows my mind when I really do think, I watched the movie Idiocracy yesterday. And I don't think I'm like above anybody else. I'm good at the things that I do, but there's plenty of areas that I'm terrible in. Terrible. And that's the thing is, I hate when people who don't know anything about something, they want to give opinions and act like they're scientists. I don't know if you guys saw my short film I did, Hello 2, out now on YouTube. Check it out. Shouldn't have released it on a Saturday, the worst day to upload it. But you know what? I just had to get it done. Okay, I put so much work into that. I just had to get it out there. So if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube, Evan Lopez, short film, Hello 2, Part 2, the sequel. But there's a line that I say in there, is that the only good thing to come out of the apocalypse is that everybody's a scientist now. And it's so true. Everybody wants to take data and just act like they know how to decipher it and take it for face value, surface value of what it is. And I see some people that I respect and have looked up to posting these new CDC, the new CDC data that got updated. And there's only one thing that people are grasping for it. And I've seen people post it, and it's very dangerous. There was an update with the CDC saying that coronavirus only, out of the 180 something dead, coronavirus was only accounted for only 6% of those deaths. People saw this and they turned it into viral posts where it was like the CDC quietly updated their the death count with only 6% were accounted for with coronavirus. And then it was like 94 had other sub or abnormalities and multiple underlying complications and conditions. They only took that 6% for surface value, no variables, and just went, coronavirus has only killed 6% of those 180,000 people. What that means, coronavirus only killed 9,000 people. Open the schools, open the economy. And I'm just like, you fucktards. You don't understand what this data is actually saying. You have to read it. You have to actually go through and read it and break it down of what these statistics actually mean. And listen, your boy isn't a scientist. Okay, your boy is not a scientist, but your boy did go to nursing school, knows a little bit about sickness, a little bit about illness. Gonna start putting out some videos on how to help you with your immune system. So subscribe now. Because that's what I think really is the big factor that no one is really talking about, which is so fucking weird. When this all first happened, I put out the Corona Bomb video, which is basically my own concoction on how to boost your immune system and deal with viral, bacterial infections naturally. Very effective stuff, because I don't really believe in Western medicine. I believe in emergency Western medicine. I believe that some situations are avoidable, like emergency care and everything like that. But I think there's so much that's preventable. We have way too much waste, way too much shit that goes on in our in Western medicine that is just money making. Okay, there's way too much money. We turned it into a business. But anyway, not going down that rabbit hole. Pull back, Peter Rabbit. Pull back. Get out of this hole. Back to the light. All right, we're back. Only 6%. What this really means is that for all those 180,000 deaths, only 6% of those were completely ruled as 100% COVID-19 deaths. All this means is a coding thing, that they had no other complications but coronavirus. These other people that died in this death count, it's a lot. And what it is that these are people who had coronavirus, but they died from complications. They died from pneumonia, respiratory distress, heart failure, all these things that are symptoms of coronavirus. It just comes down to the ruling of what symptoms they had at the time of death. The cause is coronavirus. These situations where people just died of COVID-19, that means they weren't showing the other symptoms. They ruled it as just coronavirus. And this is where it's confusing, and the CDC needs to come out and update what this means. And I'm not sure if they have by now. But it is really dangerous when you start seeing people see Oh, we've only had 9,000 people die. This is a conspiracy theorist wet dream, and it's going to fuel the fire of don't wear a mask, open up, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, man, this is so dangerous when you have people just spewing this and turning it into something else. I saw people again. The sheeple. I hate that quote. It is the dumbest shit ever. Masks are good, okay? You know what I wouldn't care about? If someone had bronchitis in the future, if someone has pneumonia, bronchitis, anything that is airborne, droplets, whatever it is, if you have a sickness, you have the flu, wear a mask. I don't see an issue with it. This is something that's been with Japanese culture for a long time. You ever go to the airport, you see some Japanese people and they are wearing a mask while they're on the plane. They're doing that for you. That's been part of their culture for a long time. And you keep seeing this pandemic rise up and down. And listen, I don't want to be a doom and gloomer, but here's the truth, is that COVID-19 is dangerous. It is. Is it as dangerous as the media says? I don't think so. If you're a healthy young person and you're exercising, you're eating good food, you're getting sunlight, and you're getting enough rest, and you're keeping your stress minimal, you should be okay. Here's the issue. This is when things start getting weird, is when you start having all these over complications, other factors coming into it. What's going to happen, what I think could happen would be dangerous if we don't really take this serious, because I don't think a lot of people are. I see people, there's so many people that they don't care. They don't realize that if we would have just shut shit down and hunkered down for a month, this would have been done. Like, just by the nature of COVID-19. That's what you say when you want to sound smart. It would have been done. When flu season comes around, okay? Because that was one of the big complications, is that when someone gets coronavirus and the flu and it turns into pneumonia as well, you're going to have a bad time. And that's what the issue is not right now. We've been kind of in this limbo state of having the summer off almost because of the warmer weather and it not being flu season. But I think as soon as flu season hits, we're going to get a pretty big spike if we're not careful. And that's just what I worry about, is what happens once flu season starts. We're going to have to kind of start shutting things down again. And I think we're going to keep extending it. It's pretty nuts that I think it's weird to call it lockdown, because I feel like we haven't been in lockdown for the past couple months. It's not really the same. A lot of people are out and about, and it is what it is. And, I would love life to get back to normal or to somewhat under control. But I feel like through the elections and everything, man, it's just going to be crazy. It's already crazy. It is just such a weird time. I wish, you can't pick and choose when a goddamn pandemic hits. I wish it wasn't election year, because you have political parties fueling everything. You have so much up for grabs. If it wasn't coronavirus, they were going to make something, bad, whether it was shootings and everything like that. But it just feels like it's all being weaponized, and it's important for people to stay in the middle and to make sure that they're seeing all sides of things. Because, man, I get messages from people so hard to one side about an issue, and then I get messages from people completely on the other side of the issues. And I'm like, there has to be a way that you're seeing both sides a bit and understanding the rationale. And if you go too hard on one side, you're drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, okay? Drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. But I don't know what the right answer is, okay? I do think the protests are getting out of hand. You see things in Florida, might as well be fucking Florida, Portland. The shit that is going on in Portland is insanity. it is enough for the National Guard to come in and for martial law to be instilled. And I don't think people realize that. That's what's dangerous, is like at the beginning of the pandemic, was almost thinking, shit, there's a point where martial law could be invoked if people don't take this lockdown serious. It didn't happen. We didn't have tanks rolling through the streets. We didn't deploy the military. If there really is no law and order, and these protests are going down and people keep dying and cops keep being killed, and the thing is people don't realize, like, I don't know why I say people don't realize. In Portland, there was a police precinct where they locked the police officers inside and lit the building on fire and were putting wet cement on the fucking doors to burn the cops inside. This is not a protest. This is not something of people trying to bring peace and equality. This is violence and deception and something dark and hateful. That is not the answer, okay? The irony in that is you are pretending to be upset about a hate crime, but then what you're doing is using hate and anger and literally dark actions, trying to lock someone in a building and light it on fire. You can't say this is just, oh, we're fed up. No, you're doing some very bad violence and you're going to get martial law. I feel like that's what's going to happen in these areas where it's getting this bad. It's sad. I wish there was a solution. I wish there was. I just saw, where was it? I forgot what state it was, but they just put that they caved into some demands that hitting a police officer is now a misdemeanor. What? You're going to get people, we're going to have no cops at a certain point, and it's going to be very bad. A lot of you really think, yeah, we need to defund the police and all this stuff. No, you're going to see what really happens when that happens, when we have anarchy. It's not going to be all kumbaya. If it was all this violence and anger that got us to this point, you think there's just going to be peace and everything after? You don't think there's going to be a power shift? You don't think it's going to make a vacuum for something worse to come in? It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't want to keep going down that rabbit hole. Y'all going to get me all fired up and dark on a Monday. On a fucking Monday. How y'all living out there? I do want to start putting out some videos on wellness, because your boy has a lot of knowledge in his head about health and wellness. I want to start helping people with it, because I feel like that's a huge thing to combat a lot of people's fears and worries. I feel like that's a huge thing in general, is just educating people on what they can do to take care of themselves, whether it be mental issues or just overall pain in their body. It's a huge thing. And I think that's the number one thing that I've seen from COVID-19, is that a lot of it comes down to immune system. It's weird that we've been worrying about creating a barrier for coronavirus. Like, everything's been about stopping coronavirus from getting in your system. Like, I think we should be more worried about how do we fight it when it does get in our system, because the way things are going, it seems like it's inevitable, like fucking Thanos. This is actually my philosophy on life. What are all these quotes where it's like, do not pray for there to just be sunshine, but pray to be able to battle the storm. I don't know if that's a real quote. I think I just made it up, but it's cool. Copyrighted bars. But I think that's a huge thing with safe spaces and all those wacky ideas, is that it creates an anxiety and stress of feeling vulnerable, that you need that area, that you need these places where you don't have confrontation, because what they're going to do is they're really going to make you weak and vulnerable. Think about a life where you didn't have to have muscles. This is the most meathead analogy ever. But But think about a life where you didn't have to have muscles, where you could go to this place, you didn't have to worry about anything. There was no physical demands. You didn't have to lift boxes, nothing. Boxes, I don't know if you're a moving person. Anyway, you would deteriorate. You'd be worried that when you would have to go somewhere, if there was conflict and you had to lift something, you wouldn't know how. You would have a bad back. You wouldn't have any of your balance and everything like that. So you have to put yourself in situations where you have those demands and the muscle, if you will. But I think the same thing about life. It's good to have conflict, but controlled conflict. That's why I think things like jiu-jitsu and boxing and all the things that bring conflict in a controlled setting and teach you how to deal with them are very important, because they give you those skills. And when you don't have those situations, you freak the fuck out when you actually have to have conflict and are always worried about it. That's the funny thing about fighting and everything, is that when you know how to, there's a couple things. You know the consequences of doing it. You know the dangers of doing it. But you also want to avoid it. You're not scared and worried about it, but you also want to avoid it at all costs. The person who doesn't know the outcome, doesn't really know anything about it, they're the first person to be screaming and yelling and getting in your face and trying to get the anxiety over with. They have to lash out. They have to test themselves. They have to get this angst out and this anger. And it's just like, they're the ones that are dangerous. That's the same thing with your body. I don't know how I'm going to tie this in, but I think we have to focus so much on immune system right now. I really do think so. I think that's something that people have not been talking about. I feel like that should have been the number one thing. Not going outside. We should be telling people, you need to be outside for 20 minutes a day, getting sunshine. You need to be stretching. You need to be doing things that you enjoy, take up hobbies. And really, I think during this time, there should be a much better response for almost mental health issues right now, in the sense of occupying people. Because I think that's also a huge reason for all this civil unrest, is the fact that people are fucking bored. People either are tired of dealing with their demons are just dealing with them, or they're avoiding their own problems by getting involved in all these other problems. And everybody's tension is really high. I think if there was more of a focus on people journaling, building their goals, and doing things for their own life, they're at least going to see everything that gets them upset in the world with a different filter. And, I'm not saying that change doesn't need to come, but it needs to come in a different way, in a different approach to what's going on now. People are name calling, attacking, segregating, and making each other. It's dividing everyone. And it's literally the last way that we want this to go. Because the truth is, we've had a civil war in this country before. And it really could happen again. And my whole thing is like, we need to avoid that at all costs. We need to find a way to meet in the middle and bridge a gap through education and understanding to avoid that at all costs. Yeah. Shit's wild out there. But I'm excited to start putting out more videos about health and wellness and some ideas. And maybe it'll be helpful, even if it's helpful for just half a person out there, one little person. I think it'll be good. And no matter what, remember, at the end of the day, I still love you. Even if you're crazy as shit, I love you.